Wichita school officials hope you will cast your ballot for the big bond issue next Tuesday, but there is a lot of opposition to this bond issue. In fact, you probably have noticed the billboards and other ads calling the bond Wichita's Bridge to Nowhere. Bob Weeks, he's a blogger with a group called Voice for Liberty. He's here in Wichita. He joins us to tell us why he thinks a no vote is the right answer. And before we get too far into this, Bob, I do want to remind people we had somebody on the yes side on last week, so we wanted to give you an opportunity this week and be fair with this. You're very much opposed to this bond issue. Tell us in a nutshell why.
Well, thank you, Tim, for this invitation. I do appreciate it very much. And one of the big things that keeps coming back over and over again is the amount of money in really two dimensions. First of all, the Wichita School District and other school districts across Kansas, they have a great deal of money already. This year, the budget of USD 259 is over $600 million. It's likely that per student spending will exceed $13,000 this year, when just last year it was $12,035. So there's a tremendous amount of money in the public school system already. And then the bond issue is really a big investment as well for many people. I know that the bond issue supporters, the school district, and Wichita Eagle editorialists like to say for the typical $100,000 home it's $42 a year or less than $1 a week. But that, I think, is really quite a bit misleading. If you take the total amount that we'll have to spend each year to retire this bond, that's somewhere around $30 million. Divide that by the number of people living in USD 259, that's about 314,000. You get $95 per person per year. So for a family of four that lives in that hypothetical $100,000 house, that's $380 extra per year, just for the bond issue, not counting all the other spending of USD 259. And to a lot of people, that's real money. That's not just $1 a week.
Bob, let me ask you, there was an article in today's paper, in fact, that some folks were a little upset because it sounds like, and this is what the article says, that principals and school officials are and they say educating the public, but some folks say they're not educating the public, in fact, that they're campaigning for this bond issue. Tell me a little bit about that and your thoughts on that.
Well, I think I might have to agree with that it is actually a campaign. The educational and informational opportunities, or the things that the district and their supporters are doing, have all the hallmarks of a political campaign except an explicit appeal to vote one way or the other. But you know, a Wichita Eagle editorial writer today complained about this with regard to another political campaign in town, and she said, well, if they get the message comes through, then mission accomplished. And I think that's very much the case with the material at USD 259. Now today the editorial writer complained, we don't know who sent out these mailings in favor of these candidates, but when it comes to USD 259 educational and informational campaigns, we know exactly who's paying. It's the taxpayers, Tim. Let me ask you,
folks that are for this say this is an investment in kids' education, which is, of course, an investment in our future. I mean, I know that's a little cliched, but do you not agree with that? Do you not think that we need these facilities?
Well, Tim, I think education is very important. I mean, myself, I have a master's degree in my field, so I certainly value education quite a bit. But what people would call me, and my name and phone number has been in the newspaper for quite a while, and people call me and they say, well, we agree with some of the things, like a new Northeast High School and some things like that to alleviate overcrowding, but they think that all the other things that are in there, it just goes over the line for them. And they say, why can't we just vote on, let's say, a new Northeast High School and maybe a school or two in the assigned attendance area, the historically black area of town. These types of things, I think there can be widespread support for, but when it's mixed in with a lot of other things, people view that as too much icing on a too little cake, and they just balk at that.
Well, let me ask you then, the argument on that side is, if we don't make the bond issue this big, we don't get the 25% from the state.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, we ran an advertisement in today's paper. I can't claim for writing that, but it said 75% paid by taxpayers, 25% paid by taxpayers, 100%. It's all paid by taxpayers, Tim. Now, it might be a different group of taxpayers than USD 259 taxpayers, but that argument strikes me as a little, you know, they don't care who pays for it as long as they get it in that way, I might say.
Let me ask you, the information that's being put out there by the folks that are for this, the district and other folks, I think some of the letters that I've read characterize some of the information as being a bit misleading. You mentioned the dollar amount. What other information do you see in there that you would characterize as being misleading?
Well, I don't know if it's really misleading, but the idea about smaller class sizes, I might talk about for a moment. On the surface, smaller class sizes seem like a great deal. I mean, who doesn't want more individual attention? You know, I'd like to have a personal chef, maybe myself. But these things are very expensive, and the research on the effect of smaller class sizes on student achievement is mixed at best. As a matter of fact, the primary study that's often used is this Tennessee STAR study, but what happened there was the Tennessee legislature said, well, we'll fund smaller class sizes for a while, and if they make it work, then we'll try to fund it permanently. What happened there, Tim, is those teachers and administrators had a very strong incentive to make the smaller class sizes pay off there in Tennessee. In Wichita, there's no such incentive. We're just going to have smaller class sizes, and that's it. There's no incentive to make that work in the long term. Might also add that smaller class sizes, you need more classrooms, more teachers, more just on down the line. So really the bond issue is just the start. There's going to be ongoing costs that we have to pay year after year for more teachers aid, more instructional coaches, janitors, utilities, all the costs of running those things year after year that we'll be paying for quite some time for something that may be of some limited value.
There's a couple of points with this bond issue, Bob, that I think have really kind of grabbed people's attention, and one of them is the athletic facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that isn't terribly accurate, I don't believe, but one of the complaints is that we're building more athletic facilities when that's really not where the money should go. Is that a concern of yours or not?
Well, personally, I think athletics and fitness are fine, but it's one of the things when people call me, the athletic facilities are something that they really object to quite a bit. They feel that it should be more in student achievement. Now, the district does have...
Isn't that a relatively small part of the bond?
It's... I believe the figure I hear is about $60 million, so
okay.
that'd be about 1/6 approximately of the bond issue. So it is relatively small, yes, that's right.
And the other thing we keep hearing about are these storm shelters.
Mm-hmm.
The people for us say we really need to build these. And again, maybe that gets back to your point earlier that if we broke some of the things out of this bond issue, people would be more inclined to support.
I think so. And you know what's interesting, there was an article in the Wichita Eagle about a month ago from 3 people who work at College Hill Elementary School, which received new additional classrooms or something in the year 2000 bond issue, but no safe room. So did safety only become important after the 2000 bond issue? That's what people raise also as well.
Let me ask you, one of the letters from an opponent to the bond issue last week, I believe, said that this was the time for business. This was a bad time for businesses to support an issue like this with the rough economic times. And the folks, in fact, Mark McCormick was on last week, and you saw the show. One of the things Mark had said was, well, this is great for business, and this promotes construction, gives people jobs, and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. What's your thought on that?
Well, you know, they do have a study produced by Wichita State University that promotes the value of this bond issue spending. But, you know, if you read that study, there's a big disclaimer. It talks about the benefits without realizing who pays for all of that. So we have to realize that school district spending, if that money were left in the pockets of taxpayers, they would spend it in the way that they want to. That would generate economic activity as well. It's true when we borrow money and spend it all at once, that there's a flurry of economic activity, but I can't remember how many million of dollars we're spending this year to pay off for the year 2000 bond issue, but if people had that money in this town, there'd be economic activity generated from that spending.
Great. Bob, I think you've made some good points. We appreciate you being on the show. I think you're our first blogger on the show.
Thank you.
And so you made a little history here on Kansas Week.
Well, thank you very
today.
much.
We appreciate you being on. The Machinists Union could be back at work.